Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Diablo 4. We're back again with our Necromancer and the Shadow Wave build. And as you can see, I've just cleared a tier 105 with a good 10 minutes left. We hit for a solid 200 billion there. And then there was a couple of numbers stacked on top for I think about 500 billion. I'm achieving this with 0 mythic uniques, 0 occult gems, 0 lost powers because I can't find a lost altar to save my life. A still relatively jank setup with just big improvements since yesterday obviously. So I'm going to present you with what I've been doing to achieve this in what I believe is a very achievable build for someone in a couple days of play. But a lot of understanding about how to scale the damage, what to target first, what your priorities are, how it all really works, and that's what I want to give you today. So let's get into it. Before I explain like the skill tree or Paragon or anything, I'm just going to get into how this actually works and how to actually scale the damage effectively quickly. Let's begin with a pretty important topic, and that is having damage while fortified, the affix, on all of your pieces. For my yesterday build version that just, gets you into Torment 4, we didn't need to worry about maximizing your stats and reaching the certain critical thresholds to make this work. But if you're wanting to push, proper pits and absolutely dominate Torment, this is basically it, and it's very achievable. You just need to focus the right things. So why is damage while fortified one of the most important stats you can get on all of your pieces? Well, it's due to the changes of putting 5 points into your ultimates. So bloodwave, when you put 5 points in, you can read, bloodwave's damage is increased by 30% times of your damage while healthy and while fortified bonuses. So my current bonus is nearly 300% times. So it's a pretty big deal. You want to stack that up as much as possible to have it on your gear. And then when we start to talk Masterworking, you want to be hitting those while fortified bonuses. The next kind of threshold that we need to talk about is critical strike chance. Just standing here in town, you can see that I have 33%. What you need is about 100%. Gloves is an obvious choice. Your 2 rings is going to be an obvious choice. I don't have any because I'm just barely about I think it's 96%, which is good enough for me. But your rings and your gloves are where you're going to think about that for affix. But there's a couple things you can consider temporarily in the skill tree as well. Like for example, Inspiring Leader is going to give us 12% while healthy. And there's the rune Gar, which can also be a great bridge for you guys. Critical strike chance for 5 seconds, get 2.5, but it stacks up to 25%. I was running this for most of the time until later today, where I was able to finally get rid of this because I have enough critical strike chance to get away with a bigger damage bonus from my runes. Obviously, you get a massive amount from Grasping Veins, 33% here, but 38% is the max you can get on an amulet. So you need to be checking, do I have enough crit strike chance while I'm going? Outside of those, obviously you want to have your resistance caps and your armor cap, and then it's stacking as much max life as you can really get. I'm standing here with 10k, which is not bad really, but this is going to be something we scale a lot through greater affixes and so on, as much as we can. But yeah, lots to talk about. Those are the requirements to get this version to work. 100% crit and stacking damage while fortified, alongside, while healthy and all that. So let's get into how this works just so I can remind you. So for gameplay, you're basically just spamming bloodwave as much as you physically can. But when you're doing higher tier clearing, you want to be making sure you're hitting bloodwave before you get hit. You don't want to forget that as part of the skill tree, bloodwave gives you a 20% damage reduction for 10 seconds. So you want to press it ASAP so you're not going to get slammed in the initial encounter. That'll leave a bunch of blood orbs behind, which obviously we want to collect to restore the cooldown of bloodwave, get a load of the damage bonuses, and so on. You'll notice that I've got Reap on my bars now, and I've dropped Decrepify. That is because we can get an aura on an aspect that kind of allows us to sneak in 1 extra shadow or darkness based skill, which we get a damage and movement speed modifier for, which is really nice. But we don't actually really use the skill, just when you need to recover essence, but we have a trick for that in the affixes. So we bloodwave, we corpse tendril pull in, get the big crit strike chance and damage. We blight the now grouped up enemies to take significantly more damage. We'll pop a corpse explosion for the damage bonus of that, and maybe up to 5, during clear you want to try to get the corpse eater buff. And now you're very much juiced up. Maybe I could even blood mist for the crit chance and all that. But either way, at this point, I'm spamming bloodwave, I'm spamming corpse tendrils, I'm making sure that I'm popping a corpse explosion now and then to keep that damage bonus going, and maintaining blight on the packed enemies. But mostly, it becomes bloodwave spam, making sure I can keep spamming it for the next cooldown, and maintaining all my different buffs. In single target, it's similar. We run up and bloodwave the target, get a corpse tendril going, an early blood mist for the bonus damage of that provides, Pop a blight under the target and hopefully get a corpse explosion or a few for the damage bonus, then just begin spamming bloodwave. We'll quickly get a stun and stacking damage the more we wave the single target. That is because obviously Kessime's legacy means that you get more damage from follow-up bloodwaves, stacking up to 300% at a top roll. So the more you bloodwave the single target, the more damage it takes. You want to maintain that DPS, keeping it with more waves. You don't want to break between that. But yeah, that's AoE and single target. Let's talk about everything from skill tree to Paragon to powers and all that. As always, we'll start with the skill tree where we have 2 dump points, but you want to make sure this is in either Reap or Decompose, I guess, because it's going to be kind of a dead skill on your bar, but it will provide us with a movement and damage bonus because it's a darkness skill on our skill tree. The reason for that is 3 out of 3 Reapers Pursue. For each darkness skill in your action bar, gain 6% movement speed and 6% times, as a multiplayer, more damage. So this is pretty big. And when you're out in the world or combat, you can even track this by the buff on your bar. You see how it's got a little 4 next to it? So yes, having 4 on the bar is great. I would say minimum 3 you want on the bar though. Anyway, we're going to pick up Blight and go for Supernatural for the damage bonus that provides. You can see I've only got 2 points in Hued Flesh. It's all I can afford, as you'll soon see. We've still got Blood Mist, but now we're going into Dreadful for the crit damage and chance. Still running the 1-point Corpse Explosion for Blighted. This gives us the bonus of Fueled by Death. And in the Paragon as well, because on my final board, I finally have Flesh Eater. Consuming 5 corpses grants that 40% times increased damage for 6 seconds, so a massive damage bonus by regularly popping bodies. Other than that, we have 3 out of 3 in Titan's Fall, so that we're able to deal increased damage to elites while we're fortified. 1 point into Necrotic Fortitude, so we have that chance to generate a barrier as well, which is helpful. On the next tree, we still have 3 out of 3 Death's Embrace, Amplified Damage, and Precision Decay. We go for Decrepify and Abhorrent Decrepify. This is interesting because if you're pushing high pits, you might also want to consider Horrid Decrepify. It has that kind of cull effect on enemies at 10% life if you're doing really high tier pit pushing. But in my experience, I love having this cooldown reset, specifically for Corpse Tendrils. Having that constant proc for, say, the crit damage and chance always going, the CC of the targets, I much prefer that. Anyway, we go Corpse Tendrils, still blighted so that they're generating blood orbs. With 3 out of 3 Coalesced Blood and Tides of Blood, and I have 1 point in Drain Vitality for that proc chance on blood skills to fortify us. We want to be fortified as much as possible, so that is important. On that note, I'd love spare points from Necrotic Carapace, but yeah, just can't afford it. Anyway, 3 out of 3 Reaper's Pursuit, Gloom, and Terror as before. Down here, we still have Finality, Memento Mori, Standalone, and now we've got the Inspiring Leader for the crit chance since I needed it, and you may very well need it too. Just be aware, it's 12% at its max, so if you don't need 12% more crit strike chance, you don't have to run that. Maxing out Bloodwave all the way to Supreme, and of course, Rathma's Vigor. For the Book of the Dead, it's the same as before. We've got the Reapers under the Sacrifice for shadow damage, Mages under Bone, that's the Overpower, and Golem and Iron, so that's critical strike damage, the same as before. Next up, the big one, Paragon, with all the changes in mind. First up, we have Essence. This is because I have nearly 100% crit strike chance, and that is very important. If you don't have that, I wouldn't even worry about running this. Instead, I would run Amplify here, as I was doing before, for just a nice increase of damage to all cursed enemies. It's much more reliable. Once you hit that sweet 100% crit chance, that's when I would run Essence on the first board, but not before. But anyway, once I've got that, that's how I set it up. Not much to say about it. Next board, same as before, Blood Begets Blood. Major damage increased by picking up Blood Orbs. We come around to the Glyph, which is sacrificial as before. Nice flat damage increase. That's just always happening, no conditions, which is really nice. But yeah, same as before, min-maxing the points to get to the next board, which is still Bloodbath. You can see this has changed slightly, but we'll talk about it. Now we have Abyssal here, which is giving you a massive bonus to non-physical damage, which is what we're doing with our Bloodwave, but it also provides a big bonus to rares in range. This is important on the Bloodbath board, because the rares in range are hardened, massively improving our damage while fortified, which is key to the build as we've explained with the 5 out of 5 Bloodwave points, but also massive overpowered damage as well. So yeah, Abyssal here is just kind of nuts for the all rare nodes bonus. You'll notice that I've started to creep down here and pick up Guarded Advance for the bonuses of that, and I'm also starting to creep over here for Powerhouse. I come and do these late. First I get the board set up with 5 glyphs, don't start hunting down extra rare nodes that are nice, not until you've finished your board, got all the glyphs ready. Before coming to the right, I actually come straight up for some point efficiency into Flesh Eater. Before I was running Scent of Death, which is a nice damage reduction, but I found I just didn't need it, and I wanted more damage for higher pit pushing. So Flesh Eater just made sense, meaning all my corpse explosions are now giving me even more damage occasionally. On this, we have Dominate, where we can have some nice overpower bonuses. It's also a great board for willpower with some barely any points spent. I'm already at 39, and I plan to cover this in more willpower to scale this even more when I have the points spare. For the last board then, we sneak down to the right, and this is Frailty. Cursed enemies take scaling damage up to 40% times. That's a massive modifier, and what's really nice about this is that, say in single target, that's going to reach that modifier. Whereas I have to be careful about timing Flesh Eater's proc, because it takes 5 corpses and then it lasts 6 seconds. Frailty's just going, and I don't have to think about it, which is really nice. Anyway, I set up the board like this just to get to Frailty as soon as possible. I also dip into a bit of extra max shadow resistance, and then bring myself to the glyph, which is Imbiber. There's a great location for willpower, where I will be getting lots more willpower when I finally have points. But yes, this is the first glyph that I put to legendary for that big bonus while healthy. But yeah, that's Paragon and its links to skill tree. Next up, we'll talk gear. Running down the aspects as before, we now have on the helmet Cursed Aura. Before, I had Juggernauts, which gives you a nice flat amount of armor. You should keep Juggernauts if you don't have armor cap, but once you start to scale things up, masterwork your gear, find armor on your gear, you take out Juggernauts, and this is where I took something that's more like utility and beneficial, Cursed Aura. It just means that Decrepify and even Iron Maiden is auraing around me. I don't have to think about it anymore, which is what freed up the slot to put another darkness skill on the bar, which I said was Reap, giving me movement speed and damage for being on my bar. So lots of benefits there, meaning I can save a skill slot. Chest is still Hardened Bones for the damage reduction. Gloves still Ultimate Shadow to turn our bloodwave into the shadow. Kessime's Legacy, of course. Yen's Blessing is still here. This is a massive amount of resistance to all elements. And if you can get a greater affix on that as well, like I have, it can pretty much solve your resistance to all elements. This is going to have to change at some point, which means the rest of my gear is going to have more resistance to all elements, and I'm going to have to get more from the Paragon in general. On our two-hand sword that I wish was a two-hand mace, but I can't find one, we have Tidal, just as before, for the big damage bonus to the extra waves. Amulet, Grasping Veins still. Like I said, I tried out Sacrificial. You need to have enough crit strike chance before you go for that swap, so I went back to Grasping Veins and found the consistency to be much more worth it. On the rings, same as before, Vehemence for ultimate skill damage, and Fast Blood as the all-important way to restore your cooldown. Having a higher roll on this is key. I've also updated my Kessimes to be a better roll, so it's nearly 10% the max roll, but also it's one that had a GA on Bloodwave cooldown. That has a major impact on your ability to restore Bloodwave. So that in combined with Fast Blood is the key. If you have a low roll Fast Blood, think about getting a Bloodwave cooldown reduction roll Kessimes, and it could solve the issue for you. So that's the aspects. Let's talk about affixes. From the helmet and chest, we're looking for max life and armor to get you to the cap. Intelligence under that, and any specific resistances that you need. So on my chest, we have Intel Max Life and the other resistance. This is going to be important to me when I change the setup and lose the stat stick that is Yen's Blessing. But otherwise, Intel Max Life, and the third thing you need, resistance or armor. On the gloves, it's Intel Max Life, and then most of our crit strike chance for me is here. That's why I've got it masterworked to hit that. But you may need more crit strike chance on your rings, as I've said. Skipping over the uniques, we have our weapon. Here we have Intel Max Life and overpower damage. And on the amulet, we actually have some relevant stats. Total armor, because I needed a lot here. Max life, because we're going to keep stacking that. And then Tides of Blood, which is the most important skill passive to get. If you had an amulet that had levels of Tides of Blood and Coerced Blood, you're living the dream, and you want those to be as high as possible. You could even get something like Gloom as an alternative, but that's what we're looking for on the amulet. On the rings then, it's Intel, Max Life, Crit Strike chance if you need it, otherwise overpower damage. But I do make sure I've got one ring with the % chance to make enemies vulnerable, since we don't have a reliable source of that otherwise. However, I want to make you aware of an alternative. If you don't have this chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds, you're going to have a hard time making enemies vulnerable. So I would actually drop something like Reap off the bars and run, say, Bone Prison. All you need to do is take it to Enhanced, and then you have a guaranteed vulnerable on a target. So every pack, drop the Bone Prison on them, guaranteed vulnerable. So if you can't get this roll, that'd be the swap I'd make. So that's the affixes. Let's talk tempering. On the helmet, we have armor and corpse tendril size. So I've got armor and a chance to freeze here just as utility. On the gloves, importantly, damage while fortified, and then the utility, curse sizes, whatever. Can't temper the uniques. So on the weapon, we have chance for bloodwave to deal double damage. This is vital. Your source of this is actually your weapon and then your pants. So here we have about 40% chance to deal double damage, and then here we have almost 60%. So we're close to 100% chance for all of my bloodwaves to deal double damage. That's what you're aiming for. Otherwise, damage while fortified can go here, so it must. On the amulet, damage while fortified, and ultimate cooldown reduction. That's what you want on all of them. So on my other ring here, you can see we have damage while fortified, ultimate cooldown, but on one ring, it's slightly different. Again, damage while fortified, most important thing you can get, but the other thing is blood orbs actually restore essence. That is because of a rune that I've started to run. Quacks means your next non-basic skill cast spends all of your primary resource to deal up to 100% increased damage. So I need to be managing that. I need to be making sure that goes to bloodwave, not something like Blight or Reap or something. And it's going to take all of my essence. You could do bloodwave, have it consume all of them, then just do a couple Reaps and be okay. But manage the convenience of having this temper, restore essence on blood orbs. You pop a wave, run around picking up your blood orbs like normal, and now you're back to full essence to maybe blight the pack. So it's a convenience thing, but not necessary or required if you're willing to do like a couple Reaps to get your essence back, to drop a blight, and then do the next blood waves. It just smoothed things out, so yeah, I really liked it. In terms of masterworking then, on the helmet, it's whatever you need. Max life is always going to be great though. On the chest, we go for intelligence or max life. On the gloves, you need crit strike chance to 100%, so that's what I was aiming for. On the legs, it depends. Do you have a great fast blood roll? You don't need as much blood wave cooldown, but if you do need that, then that's what I'd be looking to hit. Outside of that then, for masterworking, I go ultimate damage. On the boots, I go for resistance to all elements for that beautiful stat. Otherwise, movement speed, all stats, very nice. On the weapon, we want to make sure we've got nearly at 100% blood wave double damage, like I said. But damage while fortified is what we're trying to aim for on all those that we can hit. So your weapon and your gloves, your amulet and your rings, damage while fortified. That's a great thing to hit. The only one that I wouldn't consider that on would be the amulet, where we have things like Coalesced Blood and Tides of Blood. We want that number to be as big as possible, so I'd aim for that on Masterworking. Right, next up we have gems and runes. For the armor, we're just running the intel stacking as before. In the jewelry, because I have no occult gems, yeah, it's just whatever you need. So I needed armor, so I've run those. And I needed all resistance to get towards the all resistance, so that's what I've done with a diamond there. It's whatever you need. We'll talk about occult gems in a sec. For runes, we have Back and Quacks. Back allows me to permanently get Offering by just running around. And then Quacks is a thing that's consuming all my essence to make the next hit deal increased damage, which always goes to Blood Wave. Great damage increase. As I said though, there is that other rune that can give you critical strike chance if you're lacking it, and that's where I'd put that here instead. Otherwise, on the other slots, we have Cast an Ultimate Skill with Zan to generate loads of Offering because we're doing that tons, and then Zal, like I said before, for max life, increasing our output and survivability. Right, now the depressing talk about witchcraft powers, because I can't get what I need. I have found 0 lost powers. So instead of Piranha, we have Doom Orb still. And instead of the Hex of Whispers, because it doesn't exist in the game right now for some reason still, I go Hex of Shattering for the damage reduction that provides. I wish this was Hex of Whispering though, because Whispers Hex gives you Fortify, and that's way more important for us. So I hope they put it back in and fix whatever the bug was. I also do not have Aura specialization. You deal increased critical strike damage to enemies within your aura. Obviously we want that. But I found no lost altars, so if you're more lucky than me, maybe you have the proper setup. But yeah, otherwise Soul Harvest we love, Force of Will we love, Twilight Warding's my buffer from the moment. It's a nice barrier, which is really nice, only at level 1. Hex of Shattering instead of Whisper because we can't get it. And then lastly, Aura of Siphoning. Get this to rank 10 as soon as possible because it gives you this permanent 1% of max life healing, which is wonderful for the build. Last up, we have the occult gems that we're going to aim for, which, you know, obviously I have none of yet, but I'm working on it. Just as before, Phantom String is what we're going to first pick up. This is increasing our overpower damage to hexed enemies, so that's awesome. But then Friend from the Bog is going to give us a nice max life and core stat increase. And Voice of the Stars is going to mean when we have an aura active, ultimate skill gets the Eldritch tag and also deals more damage. That's interesting. Because when we have this, it means we can actually change our witchcraft power to also increase ultimate damage. With Purging Touch, your Eldritch effects, which would be my ultimate with that occult gem in place, deals increased damage to head rotten. But at rank 10, that's all monsters. So it's just a straight ultimate damage increase once you have that occult gem. So that's what I would do when I eventually have that, but that is a long-term plan since, man, it takes time to farm these resources. In the meantime, I'd just be going for stuff that's just going to improve your powers, passive output, since you're going to craft these, and then out of those you'll craft the upgrades, and out of those you'll craft the upgrades. So temporary solutions are going to have to happen, I think. Last topic, Mercenaries. As I said before, Subbo because he has the relevant overpower damage increase with bargaining chips. And then reinforcements, whatever. Rahir has Bastion, which is really reliable. You can swap Rahir as your main though, if you're looking for more damage protection and element resistance, which could be necessary if you're not at cap. But yeah, there you have it. That's my current state of things, what I've been looking at, learning, and basically finding out. It's been pretty damn effective, and I think I could easily push to say a 115 to 120 right now with my current setup. But with the right, witchcraft powers, getting some occult gems, I'm going to be able to push this much further. So I hope to be back soon with the update on exactly that, but I hope all the information today was helpful for you guys. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.